Hey everybody, welcome back to Video Game Esoterica and our continuing series Castlevania Chronicles, where we review every single mainline Castlevania game in chronological order as a retrospective. And of course, because we're doing things in order, today we have Castlevania II Simon's Quest. Some people think this is the sophomore slump to the original Castlevania game, but if you take a look deep into what the game does offer, you realize it's actually the intro to what Castlevania would become later on when Symphony Night came around. Before we get too far involved, do me a huge favor, go down below, hit like, subscribe, that notification bell definitely helps us out. And if you want to kneel at the altar that is this channel, we got a Patreon link down below as well. But all altar jokes aside, this game, when I was growing up and I played it, drove me absolutely insane because it is incredibly cryptic with a translation that does not really help you understand what's going on whatsoever. Because this is a non-linear open-world Castlevania game. This is not a stage-based game. You can go anywhere you want at any moment in time, and you find obstructions in your path that you need to figure out how to get around. Now, if that sounds familiar, that is the Metroidvania formula, and this has a lot of feels like the same game, Metroid. You're moving around, you're collecting items, you're trying to understand how to further progress in the world while trying to stay alive at the same time. And this is also the game that gave us Bloody Tears, an absolutely iconic soundtrack from the Castlevania series, but it's also the game that continued the knockback effect where you're going to die if you just get hit in the wrong spot. It is not an easy game, and what a terrible night to have a curse. That has become an iconic meme in gaming, and just because it kind of interrupts you, but I have absolutely no issues with it whatsoever. As a kid, it was actually kind of spooky when it became dark and the enemies got stronger, because you knew you were at a disadvantage and the game was going to probably hand you your ass. But as an adult, I actually kind of like that concept. This game's biggest flaw, though, is how cryptic it genuinely is. This was the type of game where you needed a magazine next to you explaining what to do, or in modern times, the internet, so you could look it up. Because trying to understand at the top what's going on, it is very difficult. You just saw that sign right there, and you're really not sure what it means. Let's think about it. Turn right for Dobby's Path, left for the Veros Woods. It means go right or left in what you'll find, but the punctuation and spelling of it, honestly, if you're an 8-year-old kid trying to figure this game out, that's not going to click with you. And I will say that when it is dark, these enemies are incredibly ferocious, and if you don't have the right whip, you're going to have a really bad time, because this game does have collectible items and different whips that you're going to have to grab. My only complaint about it is that some of the jumps are almost feeling pixel perfect. You think you're going to make that jump, but if you don't wait to the last possible millisecond, you're going to duff it into that toxic goo down at the bottom of the screen. It's a fair game, but it's a challenging game. But what it really gives you is a struggle. And I do enjoy that, because the constant wondering of where you're going, trying to build a mental map around the world, is quite interesting. Now, was it a really good idea to make this the sequel to an absolute hit of a game, the original Castlevania? I'll leave that to you in the comments. I appreciate how ambitious they were, and this is the same director as the original, making Castlevania II, but in some ways, I appreciate how bold he was by trying to change the full mural completely, and I also think it was quite foolish to do that because fans were expecting a certain thing. Maybe wait to the third game to change it up completely, but the third game actually goes back to pretty much the standard formula. But as we're walking around this town here trying to figure out where to go, you just need to find different castles to get different parts of Dracula's body, and you're basically just going to wander into them completely at random. You're never sure how you got there, but when you discover them, it feels amazing. Now, sometimes the game does weird things like this. I'm not sure if this is glitching out on me or what is going on here. I'm playing this on MiSTer. I played it on original hardware. I've gotten it to do both. I can't remember if it's an invisible staircase. I could have looked it up, but I just left it here for fun. But this game's soundtrack is absolutely spectacular, so go ahead and listen for like 45 seconds and I will be right back. Here's a fun fact for you guys. When I say it, I'll be right back, I wave my arms open in a wild gesticulation, even though I'm in a room alone with padding on the walls to keep it soundproof. But all jokes aside, that really is a real thing. This game is going to mess with you. You need to buy an oak stake in this castle, and you need 50 hearts. If you didn't come in with 50 hearts, I hope you enjoy farming, as that's what you're going to have to do, and you're going to have to hope you don't die. But you can also just get trolled by the game and completely fall through the floor. This game has a wicked sense of humor, and it really wants to mess with you everywhere you can go. But you'll see here we find an orb, and if we hit it with that wooden stake, this bag is going to open up. And no, you just can't jump and push forward. That's not how Castlevania wants you to do it. You gotta drop back. But now we possess Dracula's rib. Again, a lot of the cryptic nature in this game is down to a pretty bad translation. But now that we have Dracula's rib, where are we going? Well, we have to work back outside of the castle. And when I mean cryptic, I mean cryptic. Some of the things the villagers say to you, some make sense. A laurel will protect you from the poison marsh. You know you need to find a laurel to get through that. Some things, the dead river waits to be freed from the curse. What does that mean? What curse? And that's where you struggle with this game back in the day, and I think that's why a lot of people that make videos on this love to make fun of the game. But like I said, the reality of it is, think about some of the highest rated Castlevania games of all time, things like Symphony of the Night. That is widely regarded to be one of the best video games ever made. And it takes a lot of ideas from Simon's Quest. The open world nature, the cryptic clues in Symphony of the Night's instance on some items, it's kind of playing around with the Simon's Quest formula and kind of giving you a wink and a nod to where that idea came from. Because this game has different collectibles you need to get before you can face Dracula. There's different weapons and items you can use and possess. It has all of the Metroidvania trappings, it just wasn't 100% there yet. But this is the game that gave us something like Symphony of the Night, even if it wasn't from the same director. The concepts that are on show here are where everything comes from. Just think of these castles as different, areas in Symphony of the Night, and you'll start totally understanding that these are the main levels, and you just need to kind of get there from here. But you will see, now that we've gotten a little further into the game, we have the fire whip, and you need to upgrade your weapons as you move along, or else you're going to have a really bad time, because these enemies are going to take 8 to 10 to 12 hits with your bone stock whip. Unfortunately, it's not a bone whip. That would have been fun. But that's what I love so much about Simon's Quest. Now, as a kid, when I owned this game, if you would ask, 8, 9-year-old me what I thought of it, I would have told you it was terrible. And this is an acquired taste game. If you have bad memories of what Simon's Quest was, I suggest that you go back and look at it again and bring a walkthrough with you, or just start Googling, how to do certain things, because you're going to find that once you actually have a little bit of help as to where to go, the game definitely opens up. But even now, if you knew nothing about this and you tried to go in blind, you would be extremely confused. And of course, it's a Castlevania game. Make sure you don't overjump things, or else you hit those spikes and you're going to be dead all over again. It'll drive you nuts sometimes. And I think this game was just ahead of its time. The concept of an open world game with cryptic hints and clues that made the player try to circumnavigate the world and figure out what to do next is an excellent idea. I just don't think that the idea was fully formed yet in the director's mind as to how to execute on that. I do love that, some of the quote-unquote boss enemies you can just completely run past and ignore to get to this orb here, and we're going to shatter it open and we're going to end up with Dracula's ring. His ring is a piece of power, just like his rib is. Not sure, if we're assembling a whole skeleton, because you don't get that many parts though. But we now possess Dracula's ring, and we can work back out of this mansion as well. And that's what I love about this game. It's not just fun, it doesn't just have a great soundtrack with some of the most iconic Castlevania songs of all time, and it doesn't just have really nice looking art. I love that blue and kind of rust red on the background. It has everything that Symphony of the Night would do slightly better. Moving on. But the nice thing is, this game takes a long time to beat, is you can just game genie code the hell out of it, and any enemy turns into Dracula, and you can see the ending. And this game does have multiple endings as well. And that's the thing about Simon's Quest. It is not the easiest game to play. It is difficult, it'll give you some cheap deaths, and it's never going to tell you exactly what you're supposed to do. Who as a kid knew you were supposed to kneel in front of a wall for a mini tornado to pick you up and move you around the map? That's the type of thing that you had to open a Nintendo Power magazine or a guidebook to understand. But as an adult who can just Google where to go next and just enjoy the game and play it, it is a lot of fun. This is definitely not one of my favorite Castlevania games of all time, but I appreciate it for what it was. It was the inception of ideas that would go on to give us Symphony of the Night, 3 amazing games on the Game Boy Advance, and 3 amazing games on the Nintendo DS. And weirdly, we won't be talking about those because they're handheld games. But Dracula's back, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.